Rejection is a sharp blade, but when it is wielded by your own adult child, it cuts deeper than bone. It severs the very sense of who you are. If you are over 50 and facing the cold shoulder, the unanswered texts, or the outright hostility of the child you raised, you know the crushing weight of humiliation. You feel discarded, devalued, and stripped of your dignity. But what if your dignity was never theirs to take? Today, we turn to the profound wisdom of Viktor Frankl to discover how to reclaim your self-worth from the ashes of rejection and stand tall in your own life again. There is a specific indignity that comes with being rejected by an adult child in your later years. You spent decades as the authority figure, the provider, the safe harbor. Now the roles have reversed in a cruel twist. They hold the power to grant or withhold access, affection, and validation. When they choose to withhold it, you are left feeling small. You might feel like a beggar at the door of a house you built. This rejection often triggers a collapse of self-esteem. You wonder, am I unlovable? Was my parenting a failure? Do I have any value left? The silence or coldness feels like a public statement of your inadequacy. In a culture that idolizes the happy family, being estranged or distanced feels like a scarlet letter. You hide your pain to protect your pride, which only isolates you further. However, Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who endured the ultimate degradation of the concentration camps, teaches us that dignity is an inner fortress that no external circumstance and no other person can dismantle. He argued that even when stripped of everything, a human being retains a spiritual freedom that cannot be taken away. This video will guide you through 5 powerful insights based on Frankl's logotherapy that will help you separate your worth from your child's behavior, rebuilding a sense of dignity that is bulletproof, sovereign, and entirely your own. 1. The distinction between value and utility. When an adult child rejects you, the primary wound is the feeling of being discarded. You feel like an object that has outlived its usefulness. For years, you were useful. You provided money, rides, food, advice, housing. Now that they are independent, or struggling to be, they push you away. This makes you feel that your value was only ever transactional. Viktor Frankl faced this reality in its most extreme form. In the camps, prisoners were reduced to numbers. If they could work, they lived. If they were weak, they were gassed. Their utility determined their survival. Yet Frankl observed that human dignity existed independently of utility. He saw men who, despite being starving and useless to the Nazis, walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. He realized that human life, under any circumstances, never ceases to have a meaning. The first step to restoring your dignity is to internalize this distinction. Your child may have treated you as useful and now sees you as obsolete, but that is a failure of their perception, not a truth about your essence. You are not a tool that has been used up. You are a human being with intrinsic, unconditional value. Frankl calls us to recognize the unconditional value of the person. Your worth does not fluctuate with your child's mood. It does not depreciate because they are not currently investing in the relationship. When you anchor your dignity in your being rather than your doing, parenting, you become immune to the feeling of being discarded. You realize, I may not be needed by them right now, but I am necessary to the universe. My life still holds meaning. This shift stops you from begging for validation and allows you to stand in your own worth. 2. The fallacy of the perfect parent. Verdict. Rejection often feels like a verdict. Guilty. You assume that if your child rejects you, it must be because you committed a crime. You replay the past, hunting for the mistake that justifies their behavior. You accept their rejection as a valid judgment of your character. Frankl warns against accepting false verdicts from the world. He teaches that guilt is only valid if it leads to reparation and growth, but neurotic guilt paralyzes us. Often an adult child's rejection is not a verdict on you, but a projection of their internal chaos. We must look at the concept of responsibility. Frankl taught that each person is responsible for their own existence. Your adult child is now the author of their own life. If they are unhappy, insecure, or angry, they may be looking for a scapegoat. The parent is the most convenient target. By rejecting you, they might be trying to reject the parts of themselves they don't like, their dependency, their history, their vulnerability. If you accept their rejection as truth, you surrender your dignity. You agree to be the villain in their story. Restoring dignity means looking at the situation objectively. I was not a perfect parent because no such thing exists. I made mistakes, but I also gave love. I am a mix of flaws and virtues, just like any human. Refusing to accept the role of failed parent is an act of spiritual rebellion. You reclaim the narrative. You acknowledge your errors, perhaps even apologizing for them, but you reject the sentence of eternal banishment. You say, I accept responsibility for my actions, but I do not accept responsibility for your emotional mismanagement. This boundary restores your self-respect. You are no longer a criminal awaiting sentencing. You are a flawed but worthy person doing your best. 3. The freedom of the inner citadel. Frankl spoke of the last of the human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude. Even when the body is imprisoned, the mind can remain free. When you feel rejected, you often feel powerless. You are waiting for them to call, waiting for them to change, waiting for them to be kind. You have handed the keys of your happiness to someone who is not driving carefully. Restoring dignity requires retreating into your inner citadel. This is the part of you that is untouchable. It is the part of you that observes the rejection, but is not consumed by it. Frankl practiced this by visualizing himself in a lecture hall, teaching others about the psychology of the camps, even while he was suffering in them. He used the power of self-transcendence to rise above his immediate pain. You can do the same. When the waves of rejection hit, the unreturned text, the cold remark, you can step back into your inner citadel. You can say, this hurts, but it does not define me. You can choose not to react with desperation or aggression. Dignity is found in composure. When you chase a rejecting child crying and pleading, you lose dignity. When you attack them back, you lose dignity. But when you remain calm, centered and open-hearted without being a doormat, you radiate dignity. You show them and yourself that you are stable. You are not crumbling because they are absent. This inner citadel is built on your own values, your connection to the divine or the universe, and your own self-knowledge. It creates a buffer. Their rejection hits the wall of the citadel, but it does not reach the throne room of your soul. You remain the king or queen of your own inner world, regardless of who is visiting the castle. If you wish to support this work, the thanks button is there for you. Thank you for being here. 4. Finding meaning in the suffering of separation. Frankl's central thesis is that we can find meaning even in suffering. He quotes Nietzsche, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. The how is your child's rejection. The why is what restores your dignity. If you view the rejection as meaningless cruelty, it will destroy you. But if you view it as a spiritual assignment, it can transform you. What is this separation asking of you? Perhaps it is forcing you to develop an independence you never had. Perhaps it is pushing you to deepen your empathy for others who are lonely. Perhaps it is a crash course in unconditional love, learning to love without the reward of reciprocity. Frankl suggests that suffering ceases to be suffering in some way at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. You might frame this time as a sacrifice you are making for your child's growth. Maybe they need this distance to become adults. By bearing the pain of their absence without collapsing, you are performing a silent act of love. You are giving them the space they think they need, while holding the hope they don't know they need. This reframing restores dignity because it turns you from a victim into a hero. A victim suffers pointlessly. A hero suffers for a purpose. When you assign meaning to the distance, I am using this time to grow stronger, or I am allowing them to find their own way, you stand taller. You are not being punished. You are enduring a trial, and trials produce character. The dignity comes from the courage to bear the unavoidable. Frankl said, "What is to give light must endure burning." You are burning in the fire of rejection, but you can choose to let it turn you into ash or let it turn you into light. The dignified choice is to become light, to become a wiser, deeper, more compassionate elder because of this pain. When we are rejected, we feel passive. Things are happening to us. We are the object of someone else's action. This passivity is the enemy of dignity. Frankl encourages us to move from being passive victims to active creators. Life asks, what are you going to do now? If you sit at home ruminating on the rejection, you remain passive. Dignity is restored through action. It is time to build a life that has nothing to do with your child. This sounds harsh, but it is actually protective. If your entire garden was your child, and they have locked the gate, you must plant a new garden. Frankl speaks of creative values, what we give to the world through our work, hobbies and creations. Go back to the canvas, the piano, the volunteer center, the hiking trail. Start a business, write a book, help a neighbor. When you are creating, you cannot be rejected. The act of creation is an assertion of existence. It says, I am here and I have something to give. When you fill your life with new meaning, you become less heavy. Energetically, a parent who is busy and fulfilled is less threatening to a distant child than a parent who is waiting in the dark. But more importantly, you prove to yourself that you are a generator of life, not just a consumer of affection. Dignity is found in autonomy. It is the ability to say, I would love to have you in my life, but I have a life without you. This is not arrogance. It is self-preservation. It is honoring the gift of life that you were given. You are responsible for your unlived life. To waste it mourning a relationship is to reject the gift you were given. By becoming a creator again, you step out of the shadow of the parent role and into the light of your own humanity. You show the world that you are vibrant, capable, and alive. This is the ultimate restorative of dignity. You are not a former parent. You are a current, living, breathing force in the world. Rejection by an adult child is a dark valley, but it does not have to be the end of your dignity. Viktor Frankl shows us that dignity is not something given to us by others. It is something we forge within ourselves. By distinguishing your value from your utility, rejecting false verdicts, retreating to your inner citadel, finding meaning in the suffering, and reclaiming your power as a creator, you can stand tall again. The rejection may remain, but it loses its power to shame you. You realize that you are a whole universe, worthy of love and respect, regardless of who sees it. You are not a beggar. You are a survivor. And more than that, you are a being of infinite worth. Walk with your head high. Now I turn this over to you. Have you felt the sting of rejection? And what steps are you taking to rebuild your sense of self-worth? How do you practice self-care in the face of silence? Please share your story in the comments below. Your courage helps others realize they are not alone in this fight for dignity. If this video resonated with you, please like it and share it with a friend who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to our channel to join a community dedicated to finding meaning, strength, and healing together. You are worthy.